Hello, everyone. I just want to say a few words about this week's reading, Theodore Levitt's Marketing Myopia. It's different in nature from the first two readings, which were much more philosophically inclined. I think this is much more I don't know, a marketing, a business essay. And I'll tell you why. I mean, the readings so far, especially the Tawney and the Friedman, have had a pretty wide scope, philosophically, sociologically, maybe even ethically. And I've really tried to conceive of the place of business within society. Certainly, that's what Tawny was doing. This is much more oriented towards, I suppose, being practical advice for actually running a business. That is, Levitt is not really concerned with making very broad claims about the place of industry or business within a community as he is saying what businesses need to do to succeed, and especially succeed in the long term. So it is different, I think, in its nature from most of what we read so far. On the other hand, I wanted to include it because I think that it nicely rounds out the theme of this first part of the course, which is asking what is the fundamental purpose of business. Is it to make profits? Is it to, in some way or another, serve the community? I like the answer that Levitt gives is similar to the ones we were looking at in week two, but I think significantly different enough to be a different answer. And that is that he clearly says that the purpose of business is to respond to the wishes, desires, needs of its customers. That is, businesses need to pay attention to customers, and they need to pay attention to customers more even than their own product. Because if they don't, their own product will become obsolete and their businesses will will fade out. Um, if you look, what he has to say, for instance, about the railroads, and keep in mind it's written in 1960, so the railroads are already beginning to become less important or fade away as a dominant business. Says the railroads did not stop growing because the need for passenger and freight transportation declined. That grew. The railroads are in trouble today not because that need was filled by others, cars, trucks, airplanes, and even telephones, but because it was not filled by the railroads themselves. They let others take customers away from them because they assumed themselves to be in the railroad business rather than in the transportation business. The reason they defined their industry incorrectly was that they were railroad oriented instead of transportation oriented. They were product oriented instead of customer oriented. And then he gives a similar example of Hollywood movie business failing because it thought it was in the movie business and not in the entertainment business. So it didn't see the opportunity that television presented to it. Well, just as the railroads didn't see the opportunities of the car, truck, the highway system. It let other people take customers away from it because it thought it was in the railroad business and not the transportation business. Hollywood thought it was in the movie business and not in the entertainment business. So myopia is nearsightedness. It's not seeing the big picture. It's not being able to see the context. And what would allow businesses to see the context? Well, I think his answer is paying attention to customers. He makes an interesting distinction at a certain point about the difference between selling and marketing. Let me see if I can find that. It's here, I believe. He's talking about Ford. You know, Henry Ford is given a lot of credit in industry for developing mass production techniques. But Levitt thinks that he's misunderstood. In the section, what Ford put first, Ford didn't decide to build 20 million cars and sell them really cheap as a business strategy. What he did was he understood that there was a He understood his customers. He understood that there was a demand for inexpensive cars. So it's not like you go out and you even if you have a good product that you make as much as you can of it and sell it as cheaply as you can. You find out what people want and what price they're willing to pay for what they want, and then you, in response to that, make something. That is, the customer needs, wants, wishes come first, and they dictate what you actually produce and how you produce it. And this is the distinction between marketing and selling. Selling is just getting rid of whatever you produce. Marketing is actually finding out what your customers want and then making things in accord with that, which is pretty simple, but as he says, not very widely practiced, at least at the time. It goes into a long thing about the oil industry and whether that's really true or not. I don't know. Obviously, there's all sorts of changes going on environmentally, challenges from other energy sources, things like that. So who knows? But I think that this is an interesting essay about really what businesses need to do to survive, and by extension, a kind of a business philosophy or a definition of business. Businesses exist in order to serve the needs of their customers, and so whatever they do, they have to understand what those needs are and respond to them.